Dear learners, I hope all of you are fine. I'm also fine with the grace of Almighty Lord. Dear learners, in the last sessions I gave you a class on the most common spelling mistakes in English. Today I'm going to give you a class on simple, complex and compound transformation of sentence. Dear learners, I hope always you are in safe and sound and always you are following the rules of health. Always you try to in safe and sound and complete your lesson properly. Dear learners, you know that we are going to give your class in our YouTube website and in our Facebook. Dear learners, you try to always complete your lesson regularly if you want to get good marks in English. And if you face any problem, please send us message and we will try to give you solutions. Today, I gave you a class already in simple and complex and compound. Today, I'm going to give you a class on also simple, complex and compound on two rules. Dear learners, you try to be attentive. I will try to make you understand it properly and you practice this staying home. Dear learners, you always try to follow my class and you can see on the board that transformation of sentence. Dear learners, in the sentence board, on the board you can see here that I have given you a structure of simple, complex and compound. If you have two, there are two in simple sentence, you will have to use so that in complex. And at the time of writing the compounds, you will have to use here very and. Dear learners, I am going to give you an example to make you understand the rules now. So you follow me and you try to practice it. Dear learners, you can see a sentence in the complex sentence. Yeah, you can see that he is so weak that he cannot move. He is so weak that he cannot move. He is so weak is a independent clause, and that he cannot move is subordinate clause. Dear learners, you know that in complex sentence you must have minimum two clauses. One will be independent clause and another will be subordinate clause. So there are two clauses here. He is so weak and he cannot. He is so weak clause, and that he cannot move is another clause. So now at the time of changing into simple sentence, you will have to use a phrase and a clause. You must have a single clause in a simple sentence. In compound sentence, you must have two clauses using the coordinative conjunction and here. So I'm going to make you understand. Dear learners, you can see here that there are two. I have given here an example. That in complex sentence, you can see that he is so weak that he cannot move. In simple sentence, you can see that he is too weak to move. So at first you will have to use he is, then instead of so you will have to use here to, as there are two subjects are same, so you will have to omit a subject, and then you will have to use to, then present form of verb. Then if you have extensions, then you can write your extensions. At the time of changing into compound sentence, you will have to use here he is very weak, so instead of so you will have to use here very, and instead of that you will have to use your and. So you can see here that there are two clauses here. He is so weak, he is very weak, and he cannot move. There are two independent clauses. And here in complex sentence you can see that the he is so weak clause, this is called independent clause, and that he cannot move is a subordinate clause. So a complex sentence must have an independent clause and a subordinate clause. In simple sentence you must have a clause, because at the time of changing it to past you can see that you will have to change only this verb, and for this reason there are finite verb, and so this is a simple sentence and in independent clause. So dear learners, I hope you have understood it clearly. Now I'm going to make you understand about if you have two different subjects, how you can change it into simple and compound. So look at the board very carefully and attentively. I'm going to make you understand it. Dear learners, in the sentence you can see that there are two clauses. One is called principal clause, another is subordinate clause. The bag was so heavy that I could not move. There is bag was so heavy. It is the independent clause, and that I could not move it, so it is called the dependent clause. and there are the two subjects are different. Here you can see that the first subject is the bag and another subject is I. So there are different subject. Now I'm going to make you understand if you have different subject in complex sentence, how you can change it. Dear learners, in this sentence you can see that the bag was too heavy. I have written here the subject. The bag was too heavy. I have used here too, then heavy, and I have used here for me because the two subjects are different. Here is I, so I have used here for me. If there is he, then I would use here for him. If there is they, so I would use for them. So you can see that then yeah, you have used here to, then present form of verbs, then extensions. So the bag was too heavy for me to move it. Dear learners, I hope it is clear to you. Now I'm going to make you understand about how you can change it into compound sentence. Dear learners, on the board you can see the sentence that the bag was very heavy is an independent clause, and I could not move it is another independent clause. Dear learners, I hope you have understood that I have used here very instead of so, and I have used here and instead of that. So you know that it is very easy to change it to complex, to compound and simple. So now I'm going to make you understand another rules. So dear learners, to be attentive and look at the board very carefully. Dear learners, on the board you can see that the sentence is he was so qualified that he can get the job. He was so qualified that he could get the job here. The sentence is that there are two clauses. One is called principal clause and another is subordinate clause. Here you can see that he was so qualified that he was so qualified is the principal clause, and that he could get the job is subordinate clause. Now I will try to make you understand it into how you can change it to compound and simple sentence. Dear learners, in this here you can see that he was so qualified. He was so qualified that he could get the job. I have written here. He was so qualified that he could get the job. At the time of change, as there is no negative sentence in the previous rules, you can see that there is negative word, could not, or there is cannot. So there is no. This is the affirmative sentence, and for this reasons I haven't used here too. I have to if there is affirmative sentence and there is so that in complex, you will have to use enough then to, and use of enough will be after adjective and before noun. So enough will be used before. I am going to tell you it again, or I am going to repeat it. You will have to use enough before noun and after adjective. So qualified is adjective, so I have used here he was qualified enough to get the job. And if there is could not, then I would have to use here to instead of so, enough. So in the next sentence, I hope you have understood it clearly. You can see on here that he was qualified enough, as qualifies it adjective, so I have used here enough after qualified. And if I used here any noun, then it would come before the noun. So then I have used here also to, then present form of verbs, then the job is object. Dear learners, on the board you can see here that he was very qualified. He was very qualified and he could get the job. I have used here very instead of here so, and I used here and instead of that. This is I like the same rules, and at the time of only changing, if there is no negative, so you will have to use here. You will have to use here only. At the time of changing it into simple, you will have to use here enough to. If there is no negative, so most of the students make mistakes within these two rules. So at first you will have to follow if there is negative or affirmative. If there is negative, so you will have to use at the time of changing it to at the time of changing it to simple. And if there is affirmative, so you will have to use here enough to, and enough will be placed before the noun and after the adjective. Dear learners, I hope you have understood it clearly. So you try to practice these two rules today, and next day I will try to give you next two more rules. So you try to prepare yourself staying home and follow the rules of health strictly. Dear learners, if you face any problems, please send us message. I will try to give you solutions to try to complete always your lesson staying home. Bye bye.